Once again, welcome everyone to another session by GSCA School of Excellence. And before we proceed, I'll just quickly read few guidelines. We have kept everyone on mute. So anyone who would like to raise any questions, any comments, you are requested to please drop it in the chat box, which will be picked up by the moderator. And we also request everyone to keep their videos on switch off mode. This is just to avoid latency. I'll pass it on over to Mr. Vivek Singh, who is the chapter leader for North India, who will be the moderator for today's session. Over to you, Mr. Singh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jatin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to GSCA School of Excellence. My name is Vivek Singh, currently working with NXP Semiconductor. In GSCS, I am a chapter leader of Delhi NCRs, as Jatin already told you. Being part of GSCS team, it is quite encouraging for me to introduce Mr. Piyush Joshi, who is industry professional with 23 years of experience in administration, real estate, property management across banking, IT, ITES, manufacturing, and EPC sectors. He is a school graduate with operation experience in hospitality, event sales, event management across geographies, who now settle in property and corporate service domain. He is a student learning the art of coaching, mentoring exceptionally talented and mature professional. Today, he will share some knowledge to understand and build current build environment, how important it is to have a basic technical knowledge. This is a subject in which we all should be deeply interested because the basis of technical knowledge would further lead to eagerness and engross in continuous improvement, which will further cultivate our career to enrich corporate future. The topics which would be covered by him are doing something you were not educated for, learning something new to be more successful. We only are responsible for limiting our world. Open your world to technical knowledge. After session, you can ask your question or queries by writing in chat box or by raising your hand. Let's welcome Mr. Piyush Joshi. Over to you.
Thank you, Vivek. Thanks, Jatin, for having me. Hello, everybody. First, quick check. Am I audible? Is the sound clear?
Yes, it's very
clear.
All right. Thank you for having me, Jatin, and GSCS team. I understand that there is a whole series of programs that GSCS has come out, and this discussion is sort of as a precursor to help people understand why they need to go in for a technical knowledge when they are not technical, having a technical background in FM operations and properties and facilities. I thought rather than giving them a dry conversation, I'll just sort of take you through a little bit of what has been my life story and why it has brought me to a situation where I am today and what has helped me and how does this subject matter has contributed in my growth and journey so far. So as Vivek shared, I'm a hotel school graduate. I'm far away from any technical field as that can be. Got into hotel operations, worked for about 4 years in various places in industries, did about a year and a half of event management before I blundered into the what is administration and now facilities and property domain. It was a very interesting change and a channel for me because I was at that particular point in time looking to move away into something which is having a similar dynamism in day-to-day operations and challenges and with interactions to people, but something outside of the hotel industry at that particular point in time. And quite like a large number of people, I started off with the facilities in purely as a soft services domains, and having a hotel background helps in you selling your soft services skills. But when you start working in a facilities, properties, administration, real estate, any of these profiles, you very quickly realize that there is a lot of things which are missing. And there's a large amount of knowledge which you are not able to understand. And then you need somebody to help translate that in for you. At lower levels, it's still fine. You are in a very niche role, just you're compartmentalized. But it became very clear to me very quickly that as I have to progress on my career further, I cannot stay the technical illiterate that I was, and I had to try and get a little bit more understanding of how actually things are performed. And then with the assistance of a large number of people over the years, a large number of them who sat through my dumb questions and my dumb explanations, and gently guided me and nudged me towards understanding of what it is about. I came to a situation where I'm now slightly more confident about what the technicalities behind running a property in a real estate or buildings is. So that actually brings me to the first part of this conversation. Why do we need to talk about facilities? Why do we talk about technical education when you're doing facility, especially quite a large number of people who are doing soft service professions? And then, frankly speaking, the biggest reason for that is it's all about money, honey. You know, your utilities, your R&M spends in a building are going to be some of the largest spends that you will be looking to manage. And keeping an eye on your long-term future in how facilities are growing increasingly more and more tech savvy. There's a little bit of revolution that's happening in the way technical and technology are coinciding. It will make sense to try and understand why do things operate the way they do operate, so that you can actually understand why is the money being spent on it. Your in your property domain, apart from your lease and your common fixed spend, and in some of you who may have a wet leases where you'll have high sides catered to by the landlord, but quite a lot of you will also encounter, and hopefully everyone in your career should have encountered or will encounter running independent sites, and where you will be completely managing your own utilities, you'll be completely managing your own equipment, you'll be generating your own air conditioning, you'll be looking at working on your own power grids with the state power supply, etc. And you will understand that there are multiple nuances which are there, which will guide your day-to-day decisions. And the sooner you understand them, and the sooner you're able to make sense of them, and the sooner you're able to convert them into what is it that you need to take input to make your decision making, the faster and easier it will be for you to execute your plans. Today, there is a close interoperability between any decision that you take with a technical background. So you want to increase space count or seat density, you need to factor in, do you have enough, is the AC calculations adequate? Can you provide them a sense of comfort? Do you have enough power backup in your facilities? If you need to upgrade your infrastructure, your buildings are going old or your systems are going old, you need to understand, is the new infrastructure that you're putting in, what does it need at the back end to support? The demands of resilience and continuity will ask and constantly challenge you guys, asking, how can you ensure that there is no business outage for your people? Today, in a scenario where most of the people have now experienced working from home in large extent, you still realize that the buildings are still fully operational because of the kind of power that is in the network rooms that they're powering up. And with a large number of organizations looking at now moving on to cloud and data structures and data warehousing, you will realize, and server warehousing, you'll realize that all of these services and all these decisions that an organization take, and hopefully you will be a part of those conversations if you're able to provide that right input to the management. And you can only do that if you understand why, how, and wherefore. You don't need someone, and you don't need to be someone who needs to go across and draw a single line diagram of your entire premises, but you certainly need to be able to understand what are your points of failure, what are your points of redundancy, where can you augment, and where do you need to take a step back possibly. And you will not be able to do that if you're only hearing it from somebody, or it is being guided to you by consultants, because everyone who comes in and everyone who's giving an opinion to you is going to give that from their own perspective, from their own experiences, and their priorities might not be entirely in sync with what are the priorities of your organization. Even your team members, if they do give you inputs around onto it, you still have to take a step back and consider that the inputs that are they in sync with the larger goal? And that's where the next element of the requirement comes into play. You have to be the person as you grow into your roles in organizations. You are the person who translates technically to management is, and vice versa. Management has a very clear thought process, and sometimes it is not so clear thought process, and it needs inputs to define that thought process. But if you only talk about technical jargon, you somewhere lose the plot. Somewhere down the line, that conversation between the technical requirements have to be synced in and translated in such a manner that the management is able to comprehend what is being shared over there, what is being communicated over there. And similarly, when the management has, in certain instances, taken a decision and you are required to implement that decision, you should be able to translate that back to your ground teams, and you should be able to make sense of it in an operational manner. And you should also be, in a sense, keep an oversight on it to ensure that the actions are happening in line with what is it that is desired. So that role becomes very important for you, and that requirement becomes very critical. And your ability to deliver on that particular role becomes supremely challenged if you do not understand the broad nitty-gritties of both what management wants and what the technical can deliver. You need to be at a situation where you're setting expectations very clearly. You need to be at all levels able to understand and decipher and troubleshoot issues that can and cannot resolve from, and then get people to focus on what is the most element around over there. In the end, it brings back to a situation where do you see in your career shape downline? I mean, is it somebody who's calling the shots and you're providing them as a feedback, as an input? And in that situation and in that scenario, you need to ensure that your inputs are holistic and comprehensive. You need to ensure that you've covered all particular angles of it. You're not just looking situations from a one particular length of mind, but you're able to analyze and provide, feedback and recommendations from a wider perspective. Or if you're in a situation where the buck stops with you, then you definitely need to be very well aware of how things happen. You may not like to get into every single power shutdown that happens to your building, but you would certainly like to know what is the plan and how does that really work out? What is your annual power down calendar for your property portfolio that's going to look like? And where does it all builds in? If there is any delays, if there are any challenges, or if there are any changes in those particular schedules, what does that mean for you, for your organization, for your deliverables, for the businesses at large? And then that's where this whole reason and this whole conversation comes across. You need to get all of this information, and you're looking to get all of this inputs and knowledge. When we started out, when there were not much of avenues to get this particular experience in a summary. You literally had to either go through that particular experience and learn it from your good or bad experience, or you need to be qualified. So you should have done your hard yards in school and in college and got your qualifications on that particular element. When that is not there, now the situation is much in a different view. Now you are in a perspective where you can actually join, and this is where the initiative of GSS is really coming fruitful and really helping. In a small session and in a very truncated time frame, and from the perspective that you need, not from the perspective of an academic, not from the perspective of an engineer, not from the perspective of an architect, but from the perspective that you need, which is honed by people who are your peers in the industry, who've gone through these experiences. It is from that perspective that this has come across, that in a very truncated, in a very short time frame, they are able to provide us inputs, which Some of them will be immediately beneficial to you, and some of that knowledge you need to hold because it is going to give that benefit to you in the long term, in the long run. That's what this whole approach and that's what this whole initiative and the thought process behind is all about. My story, it's taken me about 23 odd years to really get into a situation where I can understand some bits and elements around onto it. We would have really loved to have such kind of experiences and such kind of knowledge inputs available to us at very young stages of our career, much earlier. And probably some of the blunders that we did and some of the big issues that crept up over our career path because of various challenges would have not happened. But I think that's where the learning is all about, and to get that the best kind of learning is when you learn from someone else's experiences. I mean, that's the best way to learn, and then that's where this whole thing comes across. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my story. That is my career progression from a non-technical guy to somebody who understands now a little bit of what's happening in my buildings. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
And Vivek, please, over to you.
Yeah. So first I will ask the audience to be okay. Yeah, I'll ask somebody if you have any question, you can ask. Okay, Piyush sir. So I can ask on behalf of the team.
So if I could ask Vivek.
Okay,
after
yeah.
That, perhaps.
Sure.
So Piyush, that's being very modest and knowing little bit of technical. I know the grind that you have had, although you have summarized it, I would say in a very effective manner. But then I think since I know a little bit of the story that you have gone through, I think that's what I would say. You are someone who have actually gone through that entire grind because you and I share the same background, coming back from the hotel management and kind of struggling our ways through. Piyush, my question to you is, what are your two biggest learnings when it comes to sharing an experience, perhaps with our other folks? Where is it that you felt it would have been immensely beneficial had it been some of the technical advices that we would have got on time? So that's what is my question to you. I know there are many of them. Just to tell you to perhaps name a couple is obviously you will be fumbling which one to bring forward, but then that's what I think, at least from the perspective of the folks who are there, I think that should be helpful.
I think, thanks, Samir. And you are, as always, as effervescent and as over the top in your praise as always. I think one earliest, I'll tell you when was the first time I felt that, gosh, I wish I understood this a little bit better and I was really struggling. And this is something that all of us in our career would have felt. Your organizations go through various economic cycles, right? There's a nice cycle of upswing and then there's a cycle of downswing. And we had just had a very great cycle of upswing, but there was now a downswing. And this was, so we got, while we were setting up our budgets of operations for the next year, we got an unsolution budget challenge. Like, we do not know where you can cut, but that's a value that you need to wipe out of your budgets. And that's what you need to do. And we can't compromise on any of our deliverables. We can't miss out on anything that our commitments to our customers are. I think that was a time, and this was one of my earliest experiences. This was way back in 2006, 2007. And we looked at a lot of our budgets, and I could go across and sit across and justify my entire bulk of my entire. Obviously, you will always keep something in the back pocket. So I could go across and keep, justify most of my soft services spend. But when it came to technical, I felt that there was some opportunity there, you know. And over the year, we realized that there was ample opportunity there. And there were some very constructive and very creative budgeting techniques that were there. But at that particular point in time, to convert an unsolutioned budget challenge into an operation action plan, for the best part of that year, I was on 10 toes. For the best part of that year, where we were not exactly clear on, are these spends actually going to go down? Is the running light? What is the running? Where are we going to meet that challenges? I mean, we did meet that in the end quite comfortably. In the end, it did down around like the last day at Lords. 180 looks too less, and then you win by 151. But that was the year when I was really, panicking the most on not understanding my technical spend, not understanding my technical operations. I didn't want to be in a situation where you cut into thin, that you actually are unable to meet a business deliverable, or, God heaven forbid, you are responsible for a loss of business or revenue to the organization. And you obviously don't want to be someone who's over your budget, because I don't think any one of us appreciates that. That was the biggest challenge and learning experience, and that's what sort of was also the crucible where you probably learned the most as well. Thanks, Amir. Thanks for that question. It was a good trip down the nostalgia lane there.
Thank you, Samit sir. Anybody else who want to raise question? I think that somebody else also raised the hand.
Not that I see.
Okay, I have some small question. So, being as a non-technical, when you are working on a project or any corporate project you are going, so being on a non-technical, when the architect people are sitting, other people are sitting, how we take the decision being on a non-technical, because whatever they put on you, whatever decision they decide, they said the design should be in this way. So how you take your decision so that whether he's a right or wrong, because we are a non-technical, whatever he advised. Just one example, nowadays people say there should be n+1, n+2 UPS, n+1, and for DG set, so and the redundancy also. So how you take decision, how you said whether this is a right decision or not?
So I think you need to start doing that before you even get onto that stage where you get an external consultant, an architect, or a planner, or whatever. When you set across to do something, that's when you're defining the scope of work, and that's where it is critical. Now, your scope of work document is not something that you do because you need to do something only. That scope of work document also needs to fulfill why are you doing it. So if you're doing it because there's a specific client requirement, then you will have to go back and pick up whatever are the commitments you've given in that client document, right? If your commitments very clearly call out for an N+1, you'll have that as a scope document. If your commitments call in for another level, if it's not an external client, but if it's an internal commitment, if you have in your internal SLAs with your management, with your other teams, so you will have certain agreements already there, even if, server rooms are to be maintained at particular temperature levels, humidity levels, etc. That's your requirement in that scope, there and there. Right? All of these will flow from into your scope of work. Your scope of work will not tell across an electrical and an AC consultant and saying, I'm looking to do this, because I need to create that space. You also need to spell out that I'm looking to have that with, this is my key success parameter. My server room air conditioning has to be below 18 degrees, 20 degrees, whatever is your commitment levels over there. My humidity percentages have to be, capped at this particular level, ideally at this level. This is the kind of safety systems that I have to put in over there. That I want Vestas, WLDs, whatever that I want to do. That's going to come in over there. If there is anything which is prescribed over and above, here the question that where comes across is for you to take a call on any requirement or any suggestion or a recommendation which is coming for anything which is over and above all your basic requirements. Right? Then it's not just a technical decision. Certainly, there is a argument to be made over here on creating your most technically developed and advanced facilities, having cutting edge market solutions available. You will have to figure out, firstly, you'll have to do a CBA, your cost benefit analysis. Is it beneficial for you to spend that money to take that particular kind of solution? Then once you've actually gone and said, yes, it makes sense for us to proceed onto that solution, then you need to check that that solution against what I do, a double S check. You need to check it for sustainability and scalability. Is that solution that you're implementing, is it going to be consistently available that you can deliver the same level of service, over a period of time? And secondly, if you add on more sites or add on scope onto it, can you scale that up? Is it easily scalable? And that's where the decisions will come across. If it meets all those parameters, then you can certainly look to consider an own role. It's not just a pure, as I said, there is a great interoperability between technical and your management and your strategic and your operations. There is nothing which can happen in isolation, but that is not the only thing to take a decision.
Yeah, thank you for clearing it. Anybody else?
Yes, Vivekji, I have a question on behalf of a few participants who have attended our earlier programs. Firstly, thank you so much, Mr. Piyush, for being here on behalf of School of Excellence. This is Jaya here, and I basically coordinate a lot of the programs for School of Excellence. So some of my participants have put across this thought that becoming, a jack of all and master of none, is that a right approach to go ahead? And somebody who's maybe managing transportation, procurement, or already kind of specializing, looking after one particular vertical, should they also get into the basics and enhance their technical literacy? How would it help them? Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jaya ma'am. Firstly, yes, well aware of UR. I myself have been a participant in some of the programs that you've run, so it's always a pleasure interacting. And yes, it's a great question. So firstly, I'll be very honest and fairly blunt over here. While we are SMEs into our particular individual fields and our roles and our requirements are in a very large cases, or a large number of cases, SME roles within our organizations as well, because we are not the core business of our organization. But it does go without saying that the actual activity is performed by our specialists only. So you will not be somebody, if you're managing transport, you will not be the person who's actually providing the transport. Like, in a sense, you're not the driver. You're somebody who's still managing a function. Your technical knowledge is certainly required for you to manage that function. but you are a manager, and your management role actually comes into a general management activity. You know, the higher your career progresses, the further your career progresses, um, your role cannot stay isolated to one vertical only. Even if you're a transporter, in a transport head, you've probably started off as somebody who's a routing specialist and operations specialist or an MIS specialist, and then moved your way up over there to somebody who's heading entire transport operations. You're not just a router or a specialist router now. So similarly, you'll have to keep adding these various other buckets to your knowledge, and then create your portfolio, which is a bit bigger as you progress further around onto it. And then that's the harsh reality, is that if you don't, unfortunately, in the way that the world is, it's a knowledge world now. It's a knowledge economy around. And if your knowledge pool is not increasing, then there's a very, large number of people who will become stagnant on that, which is a very, might not be the situation for you if you're actually sitting into this program and considering and joining into these conversations. It is very clear that the group over here is not satisfied with what they are. They're looking to grow and explore, and then and progress further. And then if you don't develop that body of knowledge, you'll find more challenging it to progress further. You certainly progress further because of your skills, capabilities, competencies, and your innate abilities. But if you have that body of knowledge also with you, it will certainly help you a lot more in that as well. A long-winded one. I hope it answers something to the lines of what you were expecting, Jayama.
Yeah, thank you. I think some of the people who are online, I'm sure it would benefit them as well. Thank you so much for answering that. Vivek ji, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jay ma'am. There's one question from Mr. Madhva Rao. He's asking how we can check our DVR is correct and how we can cross-check the same.
Firstly, I'll tell you something. There is, if I may, I'm assuming it is a DPR, a detailed project report, rather than a BR. If I'm correct in understanding that. If I'm not, please feel free to correct us. So my understanding is you're talking about a detailed project report, which is typically, provided after a lot of study by your panel board of consultants. You would have architects, you will have design basis report. Thanks, Madhura. So I think.
So this DBR stands for Design Basic Report.
Okay. Thanks, Madhura. Thanks, Vivek. I think the first thing is that, and that's the standard with almost all of the reports that is there. I don't feel that there is going to be one perfect or a correct solution around onto it, that this report is correct or not. Every report that you get, okay, it is an assessment from an external party basis, their understanding of your requirements and their solutions, looking to bridge that requirement. And how clear is their understanding will and how experienced are they in their particular field will actually bring across, or how talented will actually bring across how accurate that report may be, or how let me get the correct word for it. Appropriate that report will be for implementation. One thing is for sure, you will never get 100%, report which is whatever is said on paper is actually what you could actually get it done on ground. That's never going to happen. There was always going to be a disconnect. There will always be a disconnect between theory and practice. How big or how small that disconnect is, will flow a lot. And sometimes before you get on to assessing a report, you need to have a confidence in the person who is delivering that report to you. So the team that is working on your solution, before you get on to the actual task with them, I think it is more important to understand and for you to be really comfortable with their particular competency and the solution design capability that they present. I think, and that this is true for anywhere where you'll get a technical expert or an external consultant.
Thank you, Pisha. I think so. Hope Mr. Madhura have got his answer.
So,
Anybody else who want to ask question? Colonel sir, Ashok sir.
Well, great. I think I would just request Jaya ma'am just to put some insights on the reason that why we have started this session today, and what is it that we wanted to bring for our corporate professionals in the coming days. So Jaya ji, I would request you to please take over from here.
Sure. Thank you, Jatin. And thank you, Vivek ji, so much for chairing this and taking this forward today. I think for all people who come from the hospitality background, and I'm one of them too, so I could relate to a few things that Mr. Piyush mentioned. And for all those who are here today and were in two minds whether it would help, it would not help, whether we should get into the basic nitty-gritties, how much in depth should we go. So please understand, I think these trainings that School of Excellence is arranging is basically, of course, being conducted by somebody from the technical background. However, they have conducted trainings for non-technical people, So being an engineer is not an eligibility criteria that we are looking forward to. And come with your glass half empty or absolutely empty, and let us at School of Excellence and our panel of trainers help you fill that glass up with the required basic essentials, which can not only help you, your career growth, as well as, I think, put you on the path of enabling excellence. And I believe that is what GACS is all about. We are on a mission of enabling excellence. And of course, with a whole, dynamic range of people who are there to support us, please leverage that and take advantage of these trainings that we're bringing forth to you. We are beginning our first module on this weekend, 28th and 29th. Those who have not registered, or some of you who are here and are aware that there would be some people interested and maybe looking for something like this, please be our brand ambassador and spread the good word and help people skill themselves up. That's all from my side. Thank you so much, Jatin. Once again, thank you, Mr. Piyush, for your time and your insights. I'm sure this is going to motivate and encourage a lot of people. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jayaji. And as you all can see on the screen, these are the modules that we'll be covering up in our technical trainings. You can reach out to myself, you can reach out to the School of Excellence team to know more about this. And as Jayaji rightly said, that yes, it is not just meant for the technicals, but yes, it is important, as Mr. Joshi has also shared, that how important it is now for all the corporate professionals to have a basic knowledge. And this is what we are trying to deliver to our members. So once again, thank you so much. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Joshi, for your contribution and for your support and encouraging the School of Excellence team to come up with more programs for the benefit of the development.
Thank you, Jatin. It's been a pleasure.
And with this, we are signing off today. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation.